Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jaya Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jaya Vallabha Giridharadhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. So I'll just give you a translation of Jaya Radha Madhava. Krishna is a lover of Radha. He displays many amorous pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He is a lover of the cowherd maidens of Raj, the holder of the great hill named Govardhan, the beloved son of Mother Yasoda, the delighter of the inhabitants of Raj, and he wanders in the forests along the banks of the river Yamuna. So thank you. So reading from Srila Prabhupada Uramita, Uniting Two Worlds, which is starting a new chapter, I think. Yeah, we're starting chapter 9, at home in Vrindavan. Wow, okay. During the long flight, Srila Prabhupada remained solemn. His servants were helpless to alleviate the difficult situation, as they might have in Vrindavan. And cigarette smoke, loud talk, and drunken laughter surrounded them. Tamal Krishna, despite his concern, did not know what to do for Srila Prabhupada or what to ask him. Srila Prabhupada had often expressed a dislike for conversations with questions like, "How are you feeling?" Prabhupada's servants knew that they could not fully understand their spiritual master's thinking, and the scriptures also warned that one should not attempt to understand the mind of a Vaishnava. But they knew their service was to relieve him by arranging for quiet, by assisting him in bathing and dressing, or taking him to the temple for darshan of Krishna Balaram. Now, however, they were helpless to perform any of these tasks. Now, more than ever, Srila Prabhupada was in Krishna's hands. Earlier that year, in Bhubaneswar, he had said that his disciples, although willing to help, could not change the situation if he was inconvenienced by old age. And he had even given the example that although he might live in his opulent quarters at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, that did not mean he would not suffer inconvenience. But Tamal Krishna, being very sensitive to Prabhupada's desires and experienced in serving him, several times moved him over and spoke with his spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada, he said, "When you get to London, the devotees will be so pleased to be with you." "Yes," Srila Prabhupada replied, "it is good that we are going." Otherwise, Srila Prabhupada was mostly silent, meditating on Krishna and his mission of bringing love of Krishna to the world. The flight turned out to be an unusually exhaustive ordeal. When the plane landed in Rome, it was delayed there for 4 hours, and Srila Prabhupada had to wait in the airport lounge. When they finally arrived over London, the captain announced that they could not land yet due to the strike, and they continued circling for hours. Finally, 20 hours after leaving Delhi, the plane landed at Heathrow Airport. Customs and immigration officials and the British Airways ground crew allowed Srila Prabhupada in a wheelchair to quickly pass through all the formalities. and soon he was amid a throng of enthusiastic disciples, and then sitting in a white Rolls Royce en route back to Vedanta Manor. The London airport and the busy highways leading into the city are certainly a great contrast to the peace and spirituality of Vrindavan. But for Srila Prabhupada to suddenly leave the climate and transcendental culture of India to fly to the west was not unusual. He had been doing that, going from east to west, from north to south, from one nation to another, to the snowlands, to the tropics, to the cities, to the jungles, mixing with white people, black people, and Orientals, at an almost constant pace for years. He was no Hindu village guru, suddenly astounded to see hundreds of automobiles racing on the highway, or to see factory smoke or skyscrapers, or the blind rat race and the meat eaters. There was no question of culture shock for Srila Prabhupada. But there was a shock for his disciples in London, who had never imagined that he would be so thin, or that anyone could travel in such a condition. For the devotees who had been at the airport to meet him, it had been a heart-rending experience. Even those who had heard the reports of Prabhupada in Vrindavan were not emotionally prepared for such a change. Prabhupada was as transcendental as ever, or even more than ever, but the devotees were shocked at first to see him so different. Now he appeared like a powerful sage, like the undergoing long austerities for the benefit of humankind, and who had become transcendental to his body, although living within it. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 7, text 5. Bhakti Yogena Manasi.
It's first canto, chapter 7, text 5, Prabhu.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm reading from not reading from the right one. Yaya Samahito Jiva Atmanam Trigunatmakam Paro Pimanut Nafam Tatkritam Chabi Padete Yaya Samahito Jiva Atmanam Trigunatmakam Paro Pimanut Tatkritam Chapi Padete Yaya Samohito Jiva Atmanam Trigunatmakam Paropi Manute Natham Tatkritam Chapi Padyate Yaya Samohito Jiva Atmanam Trigunatmakam Paro api manute nartham Tatkritam chapi padyate Yaya samohito jiva
Atmanam Trigunatmakam Karopi Manutenatam Tatkritam Cha Vipapyate.
So the word for word, Yaya,
Yaya,
by whom, Samahita,
Samohita,
illusion,
illusion,
Jiva,
Jiva,
the living entities,
the living entities,
Atmanam,
Atmanam,
self,
self,
Triguna Atmakam,
Triguna Atmakam,
conditioned by the three modes of nature, or a product, conditioned by the three modes of nature,
three modes of nature,
or a product of matter,
or a product of matter.
Para,
Para,
transcendental,
transcendental,
Api,
Api,
in spite of,
in spite of,
Manut,
Manute,
takes it for granted,
takes it for granted,
Anartha,
Anartham,
things not wanted,
things not wanted,
Tat,
Tat,
by that,
by that,
Kritamcha,
Kritamcha,
reaction,
reaction,
Abidadyate,
Abhipadyate,
undergoes thereof.
undergoes thereof.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Teacher.
Chair.
Translation. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. So would you like to, I'll read that and you can repeat that.
Sure.
Due to this external energy,
Due to this external energy,
the living entity,
although
transcendental
transcendental
to the three modes of material nature,
to the three modes of material nature,
thinks of himself
thinks of himself
as a material product,
and
thus undergoes
undergoes
the reactions of material miseries.
the reactions of material miseries.
Purport. The root cause of suffering by the materialistic living beings is pointed out with remedial measures which are to be undertaken and also the ultimate perfection to be gained. All this is mentioned in this particular verse. The living being is by constitution transcendental to material engagement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy, and therefore he thinks himself one of the material products. And due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. The living entity misunderstands himself to be a product of material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material conditions is not natural for him, but he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. The living being in his original state is not without thinking, willing, and feeling power. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by nescience. Thus the theory that a living being is absolute impersonal Brahman is refuted herein. This cannot be because the living entity has his own way of thinking in his original unconditional state also. The present conditional state is due to the influence of the external energy, which means that the illusory energy takes the initiative while the Supreme Lord is aloof. The Lord does not desire as a living being be illusioned by external energy. The external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts the thankless task of keeping the forgotten soul under illusion by her bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy, because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. As an affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe man, just to bring them to order. But the all-affectionate Almighty Father at the same time desires relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the material energy. The king puts the disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, during desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation. And on his doing so, the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of illusory energy and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein he personally suggests that although the ways of illusory energy are very stiff to overcome, one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusory energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the Supreme, men are engaged in this transcendental loving service. The conditioned soul gets a taste of hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only, he is gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment to the Lord. The whole thing is completed by the surrendering process. Herein also, the same suggestion is made by the Lord in his incarnation of Vyasadeva. This means that the conditioned souls are being reclaimed by the Lord both ways, namely the process of punishment by the external energy of the Lord and by himself as a spiritual master within and without. Within the heart of every living being, the Lord himself as a supersoul, Paramatma, becomes a spiritual master, and from without he becomes a spiritual master in the shape of scriptures, saints, and the initiator, spiritual master. This is still more explicitly explained in the next sloka. Personal superintendence of the illusory energy is confirmed in the Vedas, the Kanai Upanishad, in relation to the demigod's controlling power. Herein, also, it is clearly stated that the living entity is controlled by the external energy in a personal capacity. The living being, thus subject to the control of external energy, is differently situated. It is clear, however, from the present statement of Bhagavatam that the same external energy is situated in the inferior position before the personality of Godhead, or the perfect being. The perfect being, or the Lord, cannot be approached even by the illusory energy, who can only work on the living entities. Therefore, it is sheer imagination that the Supreme Lord is illusioned by the illusory energy, and thus becomes a living being. With the living being and the Lord in the same category, then it would have been quite possible for Vyasadeva to see it, and there would have been no question of material distress on the part of the illusion being, for the Supreme Being is fully cognizant. So there are so many unscrupulous imaginations on the part of the monists to endeavour to put both the Lord and the living being in the same category. Had the Lord and the living beings been the same, then Srila Sukadeva Goswami would not have taken the trouble to describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, for they would all be manifestations of illusory energy. Srimad Bhagavatam is a summum bonum remedy for suffering humanity in the clutches of Maya. Srila Vyasadeva, therefore, first of all diagnosed the actual disease of the conditioned souls, i.e., their being illusioned by the external energy. He also saw the perfect Supreme Being, from whom illusory energy is far removed. Though he saw both the diseased conditioned souls and also the cause of the disease, and the remedial measures are suggested in the next verse. Both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living beings are undoubtedly qualitatively one, but the Lord is the controller of the illusory energy, whereas the living entity is controlled by the illusory energy. Thus the Lord and the living beings are simultaneously one and different. Another point is distinct herein, that eternal relation between the Lord and the living being is transcendental. Otherwise the Lord would not have taken the trouble to reclaim the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In the same way, the living entity is also required to divide his natural love and affection for the Lord, and that is the highest perfection of the living entity. Srimad Bhagavatam treats the conditioned soul with an aim to that goal of life. Omagami Tirimandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshurum Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Guru Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. So I remember the last time that I had to give a class, I made a remark to a sort of a summary that goes 20 years at school and then they put them on the day shift. Well, that remark was meant to sort of point out the inferiority of a material existence to that of being Krishna consciousness, because 20 years in Krishna consciousness will give you some really strong realizations about Krishna. I also made remarks to say that the living being is only successful when he takes the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So that's the beginning of a successful life for him. I've also there's thousands of benedictions and potencies of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and so I've just noted a few of them down. The Maha Mantra cleanses the head, cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Srila Prabhupada had great faith in the holy names. I've got a little story about success. There were two birds sitting in a tree. One was eating the fruit of the tree, and the other one was merely observing the bird eating the fruit of the tree. Now, it's remarkable that the bird eating the fruit of the tree, its life is successful when he turns around and looks at the bird who is observing him. That's because this story is an analogy, giving the sort of that illustrates the point that the super soul is corresponding to the bird that's observing the bird eating the fruit of the tree. The bird that's eating the fruit of the tree is analogous to the living entity. In conditioned life, the living entity is merely going through activities, and the super soul is observing him. But the life of the living entity becomes successful when he turns around and sees that there is a super soul. The super soul is observing him. So I'll just try and deal with the third part now. There's a saying amongst devotees that says that Krishna is not so cheap. So maybe we should thank Srila Prabhupada for giving us the Srimad Bhagavatam, where we could find Krishna really cheaply, and also for this wonderful verse, which I think makes Krishna available to us really cheaply. But there's a saying that Krishna is not so cheap, so we should maybe thank ourselves for being in such a lucky position where we can get the associate the blessings of Krishna really easily. However, the topics discussed here can also be termed confidential knowledge. Before Srila Prabhupada, knowledge of these topics, Maya, the impersonal Brahman, and Arthas, the three modes of material nature, will be restricted to a very, very few people in India. So this purport is written on the theme of Maya. Maya means that which is not. So here is one way in which to understand Maya. A devotee will have many realizations about Krishna. The devotee will think, just see how nicely Krishna is arranging everything. Also, he will recognize Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that everyone is a part and parcel of Krishna, and that we all have a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These devotees are self-realized souls. They are not conditioned by the laws of material nature. Those who are not devotees of Krishna are all conditioned by material nature. They are not on the spiritual platform and hence are covered by illusion. This illusion is known as Maya. The sense of an existence separate from Krishna is called Maya. Ma, not, ya, this. Under Maya's spell, we are thinking that this material body is very pleasant, despite Maya's kicking and punching. Maya punishes. The ordinary, everyday personality is busy making plans to enjoy. He thinks, if I wear this pair of jeans, I will enjoy. If I watch this film, I will enjoy. If I drink coffee like this or coffee like that, I will enjoy. If I have an Instagram account, then I will enjoy. But all these plans will come to nothing. Thanks to the three modes of material nature, the material, the conditioned soul just ends up being more tightly bound to the modes of material nature. The modes of material nature can also be termed gunas, ropes, because these ropes bind the conditioned soul more and more tightly to the modes of material nature. The ordinary personality is under the spell of Krishna's external energy, the Maya Shakti. He needs to transfer his allegiance to Krishna's internal energy, the Chit Shakti, then he will be happy. So here's another way to understand Maya. Maya means that which is not. It refers to the Supreme Person's energy of illusion, which makes us think that our temporary body, which is a product of the material world, is the same as our eternal spiritual self, the Atma within the body. When we're under Maya's spell, the attractive things in this world, wealth, fame, the opposite sex, appear real and desirable to us. However, these are the temptations of Maya. When we try to enjoy and place these things under our control, we cannot do this. However, spiritual happiness is easy to obtain. In the Bhagavad Gita, this verse 725 especially refers to Maya. Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samavrita modayam navichana lokamam ajam adayayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my internal potency, and they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. However, there is an important distinction in terms of referring to Maya, as there are two types of Maya, Yoga Maya and Maha Maya. Yoga Maya is Krishna's personal form of Maya. This stopped Krishna from being revealed as the Supreme Personality of Godhead to those near and dear to him in Vrindavan. For example, Mother Yasoda never actually realized that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mahamaya is the Maya that stops an everyday personality from receiving his spiritual identity. In this verse, it is Yoga Maya that Krishna is declaring to be his internal potency. For a fuller understanding of this, we can see the previous text 4. I'm just trying to find the place. So this is the external energy is compared to darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. The word apashraya suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control. The internal potency or superior energy is also Maya. It is spiritual Maya, or energy exhibited in this absolute realm. When one is under the shelter of this internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated. Even those who are Atmarama or fixed in trance take shelter of this Maya or internal energy. Devotional service or Bhakti Yoga is the function of the internal energy. Thus there is no place for the inferior energy or material energy, just as there is no place for darkness in the effulgence of spiritual light. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sang and wrote, Jeev Jago, Gora Chanda Bole, Kota Nidra Jao, Maya Pishara Kole, Bajibo Baji Bolean, Eshe, Samsara Vitane, Walaya rohe tume, advijara vare. Translation, Lord Garanga is calling. Wake up, sleeping souls. Wake up, sleeping souls. How long will you sleep on the lap of the witch called Maya? You have forgotten the way of devotional service, and you are lost in the world of birth and death. I have descended just to save you. Other than myself, you have no friend in this world. I have brought medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you are suffering. Take this Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I fall at the Lord's feet, having taken his Mahamantra. Prabhupada commented on this song. So this is a song composed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he says that Bhaktivinoda Prabhu Charana Hariha. Bhaktivinoda Thakur took the advantage of the instruction of Lord Chaitanya and immediately fell down on the lotus feet of the Lord. Harinama Mahamantra Olila Magiya. And he very humbly begged Lord Chaitanya, kindly give me this medicine, and I shall utilize it. The whole instruction is that all members of the human society, they should take advantage of this Krishna consciousness movement, and willingly they should accept. Shri Shri Kavantai Mayapur Sashin Ki Jai. Then there will be immediate effect, and everyone will be out of the clutches of Maya, and his original consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, will be awakened, and his life will be sublimed. Srila Prabhupada would, of course, be graphic about the struggle against Maya. Temples are not merely places in which to eat and sleep. A devotee should think of himself or herself as a soldier in the army that fights against Maya, so that the society of devotees will correspond to the ranks of an army, with Guru Maharajas being generals, temple presidents being colonels, etc., temple commanders being majors. So this purport is really a very sophisticated discussion of Maya. However, there are also a couple of other issues arising from it that I can point out. Firstly, association. The purport mentions that the surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. Association with devotees is tremendously important to a Bhakta's progress in Krishna consciousness. In fact, there is a popular mnemonic to explain the Bhakti Marg. It goes A, B, C, D, E. A is for association, B is for books, C is for chanting, D is for diet, E is for eagerness or endeavor or enthusiasm. If the A, B, C, D process is observed, then a Bhakta can advance themselves in Bhakti Yoga. If not, advancement will be at best troublesome. A little further in the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes the comment that the conditioned soul gets a taste of hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only, he is gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment to the Lord. I believe that this hearing process can be taken as a reference to the 9 different kinds of devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping the deity in the temple, praying, carrying out orders, becoming his servant, serving Krishna as a friend, and sacrificing everything for him. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dashyam, Sakyam, Atma, Nivedanam. Shravanam, hearing of the holy name of the Lord, is the beginning of devotional service. So hearing is very important in the process of Bhakti Yoga. In the purport, it says that Srimad Bhagavatam is a summum bonum remedy for suffering humanity in the clutches of Maya. The phrase summum bonum means the highest or ultimate good, the supreme good. Prabhupada also writes that one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. The topmost instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, 1866, is Sarvadhamam Prajyajya Namikam Sharanam Raja Aham Tvavam Savam Upabeyo Mokshayash Yashami Mashuka. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So, if anybody's got any questions or comments?
Sorry, I just missed when you were describing the different army officers there.
Right.
Where is that from?
This is just something I got concocted.
Yeah.
And also the A, B, C, D, E. Is that yours as well?
No, it's not mine.
Can you go through that slowly?
Yeah, because A is for association, B is for books, C is for chanting, D is for diet, and E is for endeavour or
Enthusiasm.
Eagerness, yeah.
Where's that from?
Right, I've said it a few times, right?
Yeah, it's just something I heard on my sort of journey.
Yeah, some of the devotees do say it quite a bit. I think it's one of those things that you say for Bhaktas.
Right, okay. Thank you very much.
And like the way Prabhu mentioned that Krishna certainly isn't any cheap when you say like devotees say this, and the Bhagavad Gita verse as well, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya. So Krishna isn't at all cheap, and his Yoga Maya internal potency doesn't let Krishna be revealed. But by the grace of Acharyas, by the grace of Prabhupada and present devotees, Krishna is becoming very much accessible to us via Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, the holy names. So yeah, without the influence of devotees, Krishna isn't at all accessible, and with the influence of devotees, Krishna becomes very much accessible. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is the purport of this verse. It's quite a long purport, and I found it. When we were reading through it there, I found it quite difficult to have a clear idea of the purport. Would you be able, because you've been studying this verse, can you summarize it for us?
Yeah, I can do the best. So it's been a very sophisticated essay on the verse. Due to this external energy, living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. So the conditioned living entity is under the three modes of material nature, is also under the influence of Maya, and thus is undergoing reactions of material miseries. So the purport is basically an essay on the position of Maya, and there's a little bit about the impersonal Brahman. The impersonal Brahman in it. So that it writes in the purport that the present conditional state is due to the influence of the external energy. So the external energy is usually referred to as Maya. Krishna's got three potencies, three energies: the external energy, the internal energy, and the marginal energy. So it's generally referred to as the external energy being his illusory energy, his Maya potency, and his internal energy is his spiritual energy. Because the living entities can either go to the external energy or the internal energy, it is described as being marginal. So it does make an analogy about the position of Maya. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy, because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for the reformation of the conditioned soul. As an affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe mind just to bring them to order. But the all-affectionate Almighty Father at the same time desires relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the illusory energy. The king puts the disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation, and on his doing so, the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of the illusory energy, and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad Gita. So that must be exclusively about Maya, really. Yeah.
In that section was when it's described, the king desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation, and on his doing so, the prisoners are set free. So I was wondering, reformation, as far as I understand, one of the purposes of the prison is to reform the prisoners by some kind of education, remorse. So how are the prisoners reformed by the king setting the prisoners free? How does that work?
I'd suggest it's when they're no longer under the influence of Maya. Also, when I gave that story about the two birds in the tree and the bird that's eating the fruit of the tree is analogous to the sort of the conditioned living soul, and the bird who's observing the bird eating the fruit of the tree is analogous to the super soul. The bird eating the fruit of the tree is described as being successful when he turns around and looks at the super soul. It's similar to that, really.
Krishna consciousness promises so much freedom from suffering, so why is it that so we find some devotees start the process that we?
I believe. Yeah, I can't speak personally for people who leave, but it could be that they just become disillusioned, or sometimes Krishna puts things in our path that we have to overcome in order to appreciate Krishna more. It may be that they can't get any more taste than they have done already. You know, the taste starts, if your sadness starts lacking the taste, you know, it can make it difficult for you. Maybe we just haven't felt the holy names deeply enough. You know, maybe they've only been sort of maybe we haven't been deeply enough into the holy names. We haven't sort of got the real true benefit of the holy names.
Like having a taste there and not having a sufficient taste and not going deeply enough, which is so. How would you say that taste is attained, and how does one go deeper?
How does the taste of Krishna consciousness attained? I'd have to say that it's by the Maha Mantra, really. Yeah, it's a prime mover in Krishna consciousness. And what was the other part of it?
Tasting Krishna consciousness, and how to get that taste and how to go deeper.
How to go deeper? Well, it's supposed to be a gradual process, isn't it, really? You know, you start doing 1 round, 2 rounds, then 4 rounds, then 5 rounds, and 6 rounds. So you taste the deeper in that way. You know, when you start doing 1 round, then you step up to 2 rounds, you start appreciating Krishna a little bit more, you start appreciating the position of Krishna to the conditioned living soul. Because but otherwise you're just making plans to enjoy yourself. You know, and somebody who's doing that may swear by one thing and totally disregard another thing. They may say, if I only eat hamburgers at McDonald's, you know, then I'll enjoy myself. If I go to Burger King, I won't enjoy myself with the same hamburger or less. If I wear this pair of jeans, if I only wear Levi's jeans, I'll enjoy it, but if I wear Wranglers, I won't enjoy it. So it's really puzzling to them until they can sort of see that, until they can sort of see that the spiritual energy is superior to the material energy, really. And you have to sort of figure that out. That, you know, spiritual happiness is really easy to obtain, whereas material happiness, it always seems to be one step beyond what you're capable of achieving.
We get some devotees who are following forward one program, chanting their rounds and so on in their service, but still they don't have that taste or they haven't gone deeper. So how, you know, they haven't figured it out. So what would you say to ensure that doesn't happen?
Well, you have to make sure that the potency of Krishna consciousness is present and correct. I mean, really, that the sort of the deities are wearing fresh garments, for example, and you know, the sort of deity worships up to the sort of prescribed level, and that you know, that people aren't wearing sort of 3-day-old socks in the temple and stuff like that. Should be wearing fresh clothes. Little things that can sort of take a person down, that could sort of stop them sort of achieving the real pure essence of Krishna consciousness.
So they kind of, in one sense, it's but what's the inner development that should take place?
Yeah, then we should just see that spiritual happiness is easy to obtain, whereas material happiness is always one step beyond what we can achieve. Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Who knows?
Okay, I'd just like to add that the association of devotees is very important to hear from them and their realizations that take our consciousness deeper. Reading together and listening to devotees and the realizations and their practice and advice that they give to us to help us go deeper. Association of devotees, sadhu-sangha is very crucial.
So, thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, just what did you say? Spiritual happiness is easy to obtain, whereas material happiness is always?
Very difficult to obtain, yeah.
One step or something, did you say?
It's always one step beyond what a person can achieve.
Okay.
So they're always thinking, if I get this thing, I'll be happy. If I get this thing, I'll be happy. They're never sort of happy in here and now.
It's like that thing, tomorrow never comes,
Thanks. Thank you.
Grant Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai. His Grace Bhakta John Prabhu ki Jai.